We'd like to move on and welcome our next finalist. It's Sunny, who is Chairman of Demand Logic. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name's Sunny Macero, and our company is Demand Logic. Now, the best way to think of Demand Logic is as a Fitbit for buildings, but a Fitbit that comes with a personal trainer and a doctor. So not only do we tell you whether there's a health problem with your building, we will pinpoint where it is, we'll tell you what the likely cause is, and suggest a remedy. So the reason that that is so relevant in the market today is because of four key trends that we're seeing. The first is to do with well-being in the workplace. And, I mean, that can be dressed up as a number of things, but all of us have sat in an office that's too hot or too cold or too stuffy, and it does distract us. It affects how we work. That's related to the building systems and how it's conditioning the space. The other side of that is energy, the rising costs of energy, the continued regulation to reduce energy consumption, and also climate change. But more narrowly, in the property and FM sector, the fact that FM companies are struggling to deliver profitable models for running buildings. And whilst there's a huge growth in smart building technology, the existing technology is not being used well enough to deliver more profitable services. So Nick summed up the challenge very well in that landlords and customers are demanding a much higher level of service and at much lower costs. And Nick was talking about the future in terms of the changing nature of leases, but we're seeing this today. And in terms of the high quality of service, we're talking about happy, productive people, lower costs obviously, but also in less time as clients become more and more demanding. So what does Demand Logic do to respond to that? Well, we address use cases in three different areas. So first of all, we're looking at the condition of equipment in a building. We're looking at where maintenance is required to fix that equipment and where energy is being wasted. The second tier here is looking at people, so how comfortable and productive are people being in the offices and they're working in, which spaces are they using, and what capacity is there in the building systems for changing the space planning. And then finally, the third set there is more to do with managing risk. Managing insurance risk, we're working with a major insurance company now looking at these use cases, but also risk in construction, so we're used also in commissioning to avoid numerous defects during the warranty period. So what do we provide? We provide a live service which analyses data from all of the HVAC equipment, the sensors, the meters in the building, and presents that analysis as insight to the property manager. And they can view that through any mobile or laptop browser. And the basic principle is we find the problem, we share that with the property and facilities management team, and ideally it gets fixed in a faster time because it's been pinpointed. Now, the secret to our success is really down to a rather small piece of technology. This is our data acquisition device. It's a single device, the only thing we install in the building. We could do it without this, but we've decided to keep it. And this takes less than 1 hour. If I can just give you that. It takes less than 1 hour to install in a building. We normally allow 3 hours. But within 24 to 48 hours, we've created a virtual model of all the assets within the building and started to poll data. So within days, we have early indications of what's not functioning properly in that building. And if that's acted upon, our customers are seeing paybacks within 9 months on a regular basis. So it's service charge neutral. Now, we've convinced a number of property companies already to use our technology. We've also working with an increasing number of corporates who are also interested in the running costs of their building, but also very much interested in the costs and productivity of their staff. But for us, the property services companies are really interesting for us because we want to be embedded in those delivery models for property management and FM, either to run the buildings better from an FM point of view or to get more from your contractors if you're looking at them from a property management perspective. And as a result of working with those companies, our cost of customer acquisition has actually come down over the last year as we're being built into the delivery of their property management services. So we've tested this and deployed this technology in 100 buildings, so we know that it works. That's over 10 million square feet of property, and within those buildings we've identified over £5 million worth of just energy savings before we look at maintenance or other benefits from our service. These are mostly deployed in the UK, obviously large concentrations in London, as you can see from those pictures, but we've also deployed in the US and also in Malaysia, and those international sites we managed to support remotely, in fact sticking our dad in the post to them to install themselves. So in summary, Demand Logic is a service which improves the comfort and productivity for your staff. It does that with less engineering time, and it also saves operational costs. It will also save energy and lower carbon emissions. Demand Logic is property performance simplified. My name is Sonny Macero, and our company is Demand Logic. Thank you. And no hooter. Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Sure. So leading edge FM companies and other service providers will guarantee to reduce costs year over year from the previous, annual costs. And I was wondering, would you consider charging for your product, given the value proposition that you ended with, as any sort of guarantee as a percentage of cost savings, rather than an upfront price that someone would have to pay for?
We would. We are, in fact, doing a performance contract with TH Real Estate at the moment on that exact model. I mean, as a startup that's been bootstrapped, we didn't start on that basis because we didn't have the capital to fund that kind of contract. And we've been focused initially on bringing cash into the business, so paid in advance from the moment of install.
Okay. Could you walk through maybe the unit economics of what that might look like over a given year in terms of what you would expect to save these guys in particular, and what you think your fee would be warranted?
Sure. So our service is offered as an annual subscription, priced on square footage, so it is usually consumed into the service charge. And the idea is that we price on, it depends on the range of the service, but somewhere between 6 pence and 15 pence per square foot, and we would expect to deliver a minimum of 30 pence per square foot in terms of savings. On average, we're getting higher than that, normally within the range of 30 to 70 pence per square foot. So a very quick saving. Part of our, yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up to that? I think you mentioned that the payback period was 9 months.
That's right.
So could you just go a little bit deeper on that particular piece? So if it's 100%, it's 15p on the cost, and it's 30p payback on a per month basis. How much is it? How much is the DAD cost, and how does that factor into?
So we're charging between 16 and 15 pence per square foot per year for the cost of our service, all included. So there's no additional cost over the top of that. And we would expect to deliver within the year savings of 30 pence per square foot as a minimum, which covers the cost of our service and then some. And the speed at which that pays back is dependent on how fast we can get changes made to the building.
Right.
Sorry, is that 30p per square foot repetitive, or that's a one-off, or how should I think about that?
It depends on, though. That's basically, that first part is on energy savings. In terms of additional savings, we see reduction in maintenance time, which that can't always be realised so quickly because of the contracts there are normally 3 to 5 years.
But those energy savings are every year.
Yes.
And so I keep on paying for them even though you already found them.
You keep on saving from them.
No, I keep on paying 6 to 15p per square foot, even though you told me in the first year what my savings would be, but I pay for them continually. I mean, it adjusts all the time, or I make these changes and I get the savings, or it's a iterative process, or?
So we will continue to find additional savings going into the second and third year. As the energy savings decrease over 3 years, say, what we do find is that the maintenance team start to deliver their maintenance in a much more efficient way. So they deliver maintenance time based on the condition of the equipment rather than the schedule. So the savings there are up to 25% of a normal maintenance contract.
And what is the main saving? I mean, what actually happens when we do this? The best thing, frankly, is to have a bloke who walks around and turns the heating down. That works really well. You think it's? I mean, it actually does work surprisingly well. So what is it? Yeah, well, that's the point. You stop doing it, right?
So there's a range of savings, but we're monitoring, as well as the operation of the plant and the condition of the plant, we're also monitoring the condition for the people in the building. So we are looking at where there are comfort problems. So as well as the savings for energy and maintenance, we've also seen between 50 and 100% reduction in hot and cold calls in terms of complaints, which then generate reactive call-outs from a maintenance point of view. So there is a direct impact on the comfort productivity of the people in the building as well. And that's monitored live. We have actually come up with a productivity score as well, and we are able to benchmark the performance of these buildings across portfolios. So if you've got a team managing a portfolio of buildings, you can choose where you send them at any given time.
Thanks.
Can I ask you about the technology, because it strikes me this is a product, and I am the least engineering techno person here, probably. Actually, no, Mike's probably less than me, but
This is not a competition anybody wants to lose or win.
so this product gets bolted onto an existing building management
Yes.
system, right? So for a building to have a modern building management system, it's got to be quite a new building.
No, our oldest building is the Royal Academy of Arts, which is a Palladian mansion.
Okay, and so it must be not a very good building management system if it's failing and requiring your product to be bolted onto it. And why wouldn't anyone who's selling a building management system just go, improve it and just go, you don't need them, ours already does what theirs is doing?
Well, that's a fair question, and that is the assumption that the building BMS is there, so you've got the data. But the reality is that is just noise for most building operators. So they're overwhelmed with alarms around how that building is operating, and it's not giving them any useful insight about how to act on it. So you have to have in a complex building particularly, you have to have an incredibly diligent team, not just one individual, if they're going to make any difference to the operation of that building.
So I'm a landlord, and I've got this BMS, and it's not doing what you're saying it should be doing. So I'm going to come to you, and you're going to sell to me, also you're going to sell to me your product. What's the cost of acquiring me as a customer? Because it's not a simple education, is it? It's not a sit down and go, this is going to improve your life, plug it in and watch what happens.
No, I mean, at the moment, the cost of customer acquisition is between £3,500 to £4,000 per property. That's coming down because with the property services companies now using us as part of the delivery of their service, they are introducing us to their customers. So for a relatively small team, there's only 16 of us, that seems a natural route to market for us. But that's actually come down, that cost of acquisition has come down over the last year. And our average cost per property average income per property is around £12,000.
Okay, so it's costing you 3,000 and your revenue per property is 12,000.
On average, yes.
Okay.
But the cost of deploying that service is low because it's largely software driven.
Okay, can you explain a little bit about the financial model? Because that sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, the software technology that we've developed enables us, the secret thing that we cracked is how to acquire that data from a building already. Most of the time you'll hear about IoT sensors being deployed, and that will be additional capital cost. It will take months to deploy. But in an existing building, there are already a host of temperature sensors. Usually in Royal Academy of Arts, there's humidity, air quality sensors, which we can pick up. Plus, we're looking at all of the terminal units that are hidden in the ceiling.
No, I'm sorry, just to steer you in a different direction. The financial model. Okay, so it costs you 3,000 to acquire a customer. Yeah. You've got the hardware and the software in the hardware.
We have.
So, can you talk to me about how that financial model pans out in terms of your earnings and valuation going forward? So you're going to get 1,000 customers, and that's going to make you 1,000 times 9,000 a year.
That's right, and the cost of deployment decreases over time because at the moment we've only got a limited number of buildings. So we've built this cloud platform which is very scalable, which means we can add in lots. The marginal cost of each additional building is relatively low. So
okay, so what's the valuation?
So the valuation is we're looking at £8 million at the moment, and we're looking to raise between 1.5.
And what's your revenue projected for your? You've already got revenues.
So our sales for this year were £1 million.
Are you already at £1 million? Or in your application you're
in the last 12 months we've sold £1 million worth of contracts, and we will break even this year.
So £1 million of operating costs.
Yeah.
And are they broadly fixed going forward because you've developed the software, or?
Well, in taking investment on, we would be doing new development, but on new use cases. So, for instance, the insurance, looking at how our data is used to manage insurance risk is a new area for us. We're working with one of the big insurance companies who is now piloting with us use cases for how do you reduce the likelihood of insurable events happening, and then evaluating the claims once they've happened, because we're essentially a black box in a building like you have a black box in a plane.
I just want to change horses quickly. So you mentioned that you have customers in Malaysia and the US. How have you gone about acquiring and building a brand, or whatever it is that you've done in those markets?
it's very, very early days in terms of those countries, but off the back of missions that we've undertaken to those countries, the interest has been there immediately. And through conversations with partner organisations there, we've been able to identify opportunities and get those buildings up and running. But it was more about proving that it works in other regions rather than establishing businesses there. So the other reason for raising the money is to establish a base in the US, which we believe to be our biggest kind of single market outside of the UK.
And currently, what sort of rate of building acquisition are you running at?
It's still we've deployed in 100 buildings, and that's up from 60 last year. But given the size of our team, we've tended to focus on large buildings rather than high volume smaller buildings, which we can also deploy to, but that's not in our interest in terms of
But 40 buildings, new building, or
over the last 12 months, yes.
yeah, thanks.
Okay, so time is up.
Thank you very much.
Round of applause for